So recently I've been wanting to play around in my sketchbook more. I drew this fun smiling ice cream cone the other day, and I've been wanting to make more art like this. Since I do make a lot of more detailed and refined digital art for work, I find these sessions where I just kind of throw the first thing that pops into my head onto the page are essential for me as a creative. So today I want to share my tips on how I make sketching and making art in general fun again, because unfortunately I can sometimes get so caught up thinking that every page needs to be perfect, especially when working in one of these hardcover sketchbooks. The reality of it is that sketchbooks are meant to house sketches and doodles and ideas. It's just a place to explore and be creative and put ideas to paper without these expectations for perfection. I want to be reminded of what it's like to have fun in my sketchbook again and just create for the sake of creating. So, as a way to officially break this sketchbook in, I am going to go with the flow, just let my initial thoughts out onto paper, and without thinking too much, I'm just going to make things. I'm going to be using several different markers because they allow me to cover a lot of surface area in a short amount of time, which is my goal in filling these upcoming pages. I really just want to focus a little more on the process and not so much on the finished result. I also want to experiment with colors because I've been doing the same sort of thing in the sketchbook, which is using colored pencil almost exclusively, and I want to change it up and make some really colorful pages and have some fun doing it. So my first tip in making art fun again is to make the art that you want to make. When I first started out, I made tons of realistic art, and now as I've gotten older and honed my craft, I enjoy working in a much more relaxed and stylized way. It's a lot more simplistic and straightforward, but that's what I have grown to love creating. Oftentimes I see other artists post these beautiful spreads of these realistic sketches of people or animals or food, and I have this tendency to think that my sketchbook should look the same or at least similar to theirs. When I really think about it though, I remember that my kind of cartoony, stylized way of working is what I really enjoy the most. I can still appreciate and admire other artists for having their own way of drawing or using their sketchbooks, while still remembering that my own way of working is unique to me and my practice. Over the years, I've learned that there's a big difference in art you enjoy seeing versus the art you enjoy making yourself. As someone with dozens of full sketchbooks, I've taken the time to realize that I feel the most joy when drawing in the stylized way that I do. So while I can still respect and admire other artists and their way of working, it just makes the most sense for me to draw and improve upon the type of art that I enjoy creating the most. Because of this, I need to have a place to get ideas out and explore creatively without the added pressure of it needing to be perfect or even close to it. I think comparing myself to other people, whether that's other artists or anyone else's lives in general, has never led me to a good place. So remembering to focus on myself and the goals that I've set for my own journey really helps to bring me out of that negative cycle of comparison that no one really ever wants to be in. So focusing on myself and what I want to be making helps to make working in a sketchbook more fun overall because I'm creating what excites me the most. My next tip for making art fun again is to get out of your head and put anything on paper. For these few pages I'm working on, I really tried my best not to take too long choosing the subject matter or a color scheme. I really wanted to dive in and make whatever came to my mind first. I mentioned earlier that working in these hardcover sketchbooks can make me feel like everything I put in them has to be a masterpiece. I think it's something about just a hardcover book that adds like this extra level of intimidation that just isn't really there with a wire-bound or a soft cover sketchbook. Honestly, I don't believe that every page in a sketchbook should be filled with beautiful studies or finished works of art. If anything, I prefer to have a sketchbook that is dedicated to the polished works of art, while the other sketchbooks I have are filled with the messier sketches and the colorful explorations. I think letting go of this need for perfectionism has helped me to create more often and more freely. I am an anxious person, so these moments where I don't overthink what I'm doing and just allow myself to aimlessly color a big block of space or add little unexpected details really helps me to ease my overthinking mind. Now, I'll be honest and admit that I do need to practice what I preach more often because I don't implement this exercise as frequently as I could. But I would love to get to a point where I do sit down a few times each week and make a fun spread in my sketchbook. And these pages I'm working on here are perfect examples of why I would like to make this a regular practice. I'm actually having so much fun and just enjoying adding all these little details and just letting my mind kind of take a break and enjoy this process. I've spoken before about the importance of being mindful, especially as a creative. But this exercise really does allow me to just be in the present moment and focus on the task at hand. Now, I'm aware that nothing I'm drawing here is groundbreaking by any means, but just by taking the time to sit down and to put these markers to the paper is easing any anxiety I had before starting this exercise. Allowing myself to let loose and just put on some music while I do this has helped to make the whole process more enjoyable as a whole, because I'm just coloring and adding little details without overthinking or feeling a need to make it perfect. My third tip for making art fun again is to remember that making these explorative sketches and drawings, no matter how messy, is helping you progress in your art journey. It took years for me to develop my style into what it is, but I could not have gotten to this point without trying new things and making tons of art. As I mentioned earlier, I used to draw and paint in a more realistic style, but over the years I have moved away from that and started to crave more simplicity and stylization. There was a time in school when I was in this kind of weird limbo of being in between art styles, where you could tell I had started out drawing in a more realistic style, but I was kind of leaning more toward a stylized, almost cartoon-like way of drawing, and it was just a weird time for me. It took a lot of experimentation and practice to fully move into what I wanted my art to look like and what it has evolved into today. That's why these fun, experimental, freeing sketchbook spreads are so essential to finding your artistic voice. I think trying out different mediums or techniques really helps me to improve my understanding of how each element kind of works with one another, and it honestly makes for just a fun experience overall. The amount of improvement I've made over the years really is owed to that time spent in my sketchbook, doodling and sketching and just trying new things and fleshing out ideas. I don't think any artist or creative is ever really above the need to experiment and make messy art. It is just, to me, such an important step in improving and making progress, and of course it's a lot of fun to let loose and just get creating for the sake of it. As I said earlier, I would love to do this much more frequently because I really had such a good time making these pages, even if the finished pieces aren't made up of anything revolutionary. I am still just so happy with how they all came out. I've enjoyed this whole process, and I've also thought of some ways I could further develop some of these sketches at a later date, so I will definitely be revisiting these pages at some point. I really hope that you have been inspired to pick up your sketchbook and get drawing, even if it's messy and it only gets seen by you. This was a really fun exercise for me and something that I will be doing more frequently, and I hope that you will too. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!